Did you know that the majority of salt that Americans eat doesn't come from the salt shaker on your table? More than 75% of the sodium in the standard American diet is from preserved and prepackaged foods. The current dietary guidelines recommend no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. This is about the amount of salt found in 1 teaspoon. High intake of sodium can lead to the development of high blood pressure, heart failure, kidney disease, stroke, and even heart disease. If you've already been diagnosed with one of these conditions, it's even more important that you limit your sodium intake to less than 1,500 milligrams per day to avoid worsening these conditions. But reducing your salt intake doesn't have to mean reducing the taste of your food. In this video, you will learn some of the many ways to prepare healthy food that is also delicious and flavorful.
Today, we're going to be making a roasted cauliflower over a bed of farro with a garlic tahini sauce. Before I get cooking, I like to make sure that I have all of my ingredients set out and spices measured out. To start, we're going to chop up our cauliflower. I'm going to remove these leaves and always have a place ready for our extra food waste. The average American only eats approximately half of the potassium recommended by the dietary guidelines for Americans. Unfortunately, this is in combination with an average sodium intake of double what is recommended. You can just chop your cauliflower in half. One of the reasons that I picked this recipe is because white foods often get a bad reputation for not having very much nutritional value, but that's not the case. White foods like cauliflower, mushrooms, parsnips, and potatoes are great sources of potassium. So we're going to start by cutting our cauliflower into florets. Like you can see the natural shape in there. And then after we get them all separate, we're going to start cutting them into smaller bite-sized pieces. So I would not consider that to be bite-sized, so I want to cut on each little line in there to make them smaller. You can see I'm leaving the longer stem on here because the cauliflower stem is edible. Though if you don't want to include it there, one of my favorite things to do with it is to chop it up finely and put it in the freezer and use it later to make soup. If you find that you don't have the time to cut up all the cauliflower, it is a product that's readily available at the grocery store pre-cut up for you. Not only are we trying to chop them into comfortable bite-sized pieces, but we're also trying to increase the surface area on the cauliflower. This is going to help us in our next step when we put the cauliflower in the oven to roast. It is important to arrange the florets in a single layer. If they are piled on top of each other, it will trap the moisture, steaming the cauliflower and preventing browning. We're going to take a tablespoon of olive oil and drizzle it all over. Using the black pepper and paprika that we already measured out, I'm going to sprinkle that on top as well. And mix thoroughly. I try to be careful not to dump all the spices on one spot because then you'll get some very heavily seasoned cauliflower and some not so seasoned cauliflower. Okay, and these are ready to go in the oven. It's at 475 and we're going to roast for about 30 minutes. While that cauliflower is cooking, we're going to get started on the stove top. Over medium heat, we're going to put another tablespoon in the pan. And start with some almonds. We're roasting these almonds to create some additional flavor. I'm going to stir frequently so they don't burn on the bottom. After a few minutes over medium heat, we can now smell the almonds, hear them sizzle a little bit, and start to see the browning. Once you notice a little bit of browning, we're going to add the farro in there for a minute. Farro is a whole grain wheat variety. Cooking farro is similar to other whole grains. Using 2 parts water to 1 part grain, it simmers on the stovetop for 20 to 30 minutes until tender. Cooking the grains before adding the fluid to simmer is going to help deepen the flavor. Then we're going to add the spices and the garlic that we minced up. Sauté that for about 30 seconds. That's going to help bring out the flavor of the spices and the garlic. I don't add the garlic sooner because it's pretty tender, so it's likely to burn if in the pan for too long. Now that I can smell the garlic, I'm going to add the vegetable broth. This vegetable broth is the main source of salt in this recipe. We're not going to add any additional salt because many ingredients can act as salts. Things like broth, like we used, or cured meats, Parmesan cheese, capers, or other pickled vegetables. Now that we've added the liquid, we're going to bring it to a boil and then turn it down to a simmer. We're going to add the lid to trap the liquid so that we can steam the grains. Now we're going to mix up the garlic tahini sauce. We're starting with 1/2 cup of water, and we're going to add 1/3 cup of tahini. We're going to add the garlic that we already minced up, and the juice of 1 fresh lemon. I'm going to whisk it together with tahini, which is sesame seed butter, and a great source of fiber and protein, as well as lemon juice. It's important to include some source of acid in every recipe because it creates a nice, sharp, bright, and clean flavor to balance the dish. For different recipes, you might use other acids like vinegars, tomatoes, or plain yogurt. I am also adding black pepper and red chili flakes for a touch of heat. Now that we can smell the cauliflower and it has a nice browning, we're going to pull it out of the oven. All those nice dark crispy bits are going to be very delicious. Our farro here is also done. So we're going to take a slotted spoon in case there's extra liquid. Making a nice bed for the cauliflower to go on top of. Now we're going to drizzle with the garlic tahini sauce. Top with some cilantro. And finish with fresh sesame seeds. So far, we have covered 5 ways to create flavor without using salt. First, we chopped up the cauliflower nice and small to create a lot of surface area. Second, we used a fat to help carry the flavor. Third, we used aromatics like spices and garlic to create a lot of smell and flavor. Fourth, we used an acid to bring out some of the brightness and balance the heavy flavors. Fifth, we used heat to create the browning in the roasted cauliflower, the almonds, and the farro. And finally, we're going to top with fresh herbs and seeds to create some texture. And that's 6 ways that we can create a lot of flavor without too much salt. My goal is actually to teach cooking classes in person with my patients. In the clinic setting, I can talk to people about food all day, but it's really tough when I don't have food that we can actually touch and play with to teach them the skills they need in the kitchen and how to feed themselves healthier foods. I really want to be able to expose people to new fruits and vegetables that they may not have otherwise picked up at the grocery store because they were afraid of what they might be or what they were going to do with them. So that kind of exposure so they know what things are and they feel more comfortable cooking in their home setting. So please check out the Swedish website and see if we're having any classes because I would love to see you there.